We are back. It's the Joe Holka Show presented by Line Movement. What is going on, everybody? Week 10, double digits, one of the best slates of the entire year. Is that good? We've got a ton of late games, which you guys know I love as someone that plays a lot of tournaments, someone that definitely wants you guys to late swap as much as possible. This is going to be a really fun day overall, and I'm really excited to have the polls ready, I hope. Fingers crossed. Those are always going to be a lot of fun on these morning streams on Sundays in particular, because we can get a feel for where everyone's at. We can get a feel for where I'm at, each position, stacks, all that good stuff. We got some weather in play today, of course. We have some indications that there will be some later news throughout the day as well. It has all the makings of one of the best slates of the entire year, in my opinion. You guys know that I love playing some of the smaller slates as well. Late swaps we'll get into a little bit more as we approach playoff time, as we approach Thanksgiving. That's a great slate as well for late swap, that sort of thing. But we'll get there, guys. There's a lot of things to talk about today. Obviously, two pretty important games to get right on the slate. Also going to be some landmines along the way. So it'll be great, guys. I know we got over 250 people in the chat right now. Appreciate each and every one of you. Do me a huge favor. When you first get in here, toss a like on this video when you get a chance. It'll help more people find us. That's how the community is growing. People are finding us on YouTube. And that's what's so great about YouTube, because we can continue to try and do good content, get you guys involved. It's all about building community, all of that good stuff. And then you'll get suggested in front of more people. There's tons of people on Sundays that, like, YouTube's one of the biggest search engines in the world. They're searching fantasy football. They're searching DFS picks, that sort of stuff. We want to be the people that get those people. You know what I mean? We want to be the community that grows into the best Sunday morning stream in the entire world. That's where I'm at. I'm feeling good. I'm actually, like, I know that I've been, and I appreciate everyone that's kind of been, with me through this whole COVID thing. Wasn't feeling well for 4 or 5 days last week. Was starting to feel a lot better this week. We got through our normal routine. Today's one of the first days I've actually felt really solid. So it's nice on a Sunday. Obviously, a lot going on. The Line Movement NFL show directly after this at 11 a.m. Eastern time. Make sure you guys check out that one. That's with myself, Dieter Kurtenbach, and Peter Overzet. Peter and I will be back with the Tiltspace, of course, later on. But one thing that I do want to mention, guys, and obviously if you've checked out the podcast throughout the week, really appreciate it. There's been a huge bump in, like, ratings and reviews, which really helps get the word out for the podcast as well. But we're also going to make these polls that we're going to do today. Those are going to be sub only. So if you're here for the first time, we'd love it if you consider subscribing to the channel, all that good stuff. Let's try it. I like, honestly, hang on. I got to make sure. Yep. They told me that I have to wait at least 5 minutes to do a poll. Who knows? But let's give it a try. Highest owned player on DraftKings in week 10. So in the chat, to place your vote for Mike Davis, you're going to go !vote space 1. So we got Mike Davis, we got Duke Johnson, we got Aaron Jones, we got Dallas Goddard. If you think other, I still want you to vote 5 in the chat, but then let me know in the chat who you think will be the highest owned player on DraftKings in week 10. Let's start with the chalk. Let's see that. Late night, I'm not sure why your message got deleted, man. There's all these little bots and stuff like that. Sorry about that. I don't even know what you said. I missed it. Scott McCarty, thanks for subscribing, man. Really appreciate that. I know I missed one earlier as well. Who we got? Stone Style Design is with us for the first time. Let us know in the chat where you found us, man. R4 said, love content, Big Dog. Man, Big Dog is not on the slate, so that means I can make some money. It's great. I do. It looks like the polls are working, by the way. 36 votes for Mike Davis already. This is only a sub vote. So if you are not subscribed to the channel, your vote will not count towards the tally, if that makes sense. Just a little bit of an extra incentive for you guys to get involved. A lot of ones. Wow. Okay. I'm going to scroll up here and make sure I didn't miss anyone in the chat. I know there's a bunch of people in the Noti-Gang that were here very early. And if you don't know what the Noti-Gang is, obviously, if you're with us on Twitch last year, you get a notification right to your phone. There's actually like 15 people over on Twitch right now. Come join us on YouTube. Periscope, you guys, come join us on YouTube. That's where the conversation is. So if you're part of the Noti-Gang, that means you just hit that bell. At some point throughout one of these shows, you've hit that bell on YouTube, and then you get a notification right to your phone. I'm going to start going live early, randomly throughout the week. The only way that you'll get to be a part of that, to the early streams, is if you're a part of the Noti-Gang. So I love you guys in the chat. What else we got in here? Of course, I'm going to throw out some shout outs. We're waiting on this. Pretty convincingly, Mike Davis so far in terms of the sub-only votes. So that's interesting. Third and long in the chat, of course, Eric McKibben. Late Nights in here. Richard Super. Who else we got in here? Luke Almartar. What's up, man? How's it going, man? Sasha's in here. John, DP, of course. Justin Gase. A lot of familiar faces, guys. Good stuff. I'm so fired up the polls are working. This is going to be really fun. Oh, no. I forgot to transition it. Now you guys can see it. I'm the worst. I'm sorry. Polls are working, though. Polls are working. I didn't bury the lead here. Mike Davis, 59 votes so far from the subs. We have 1 vote for Duke Johnson. Shout out to that person in the chat. Looks like we got the mod is deleting, or one of the Google mods is deleting certain things in the chat. Sorry about that, DP. I'm gonna have to check that after the stream. Alpha, what's up, man? How's it going? Luke is in here. PJ's in here. We got Brandon Ricker in here. Stan Card, of course, is in here. Joshua McClintock. What's up, Ann? How's it going, PJ? Logan. Who else? Aaron Rasmus is in here. Carlos Soto. What's up, guys? How are we feeling about week 10 so far? We have polls. This is the best. Tony A, what's the name of that song? Harris Heller, man. A bunch of free music that I use throughout my streams. You don't wanna mess with the music industry. Twitch is finding that out right now. Carlos Soto, oh my God, the polls. Yeah, the polls are in. What's up, Gavin? How's it going, man? Gavin wants to talk about early only and afternoon only at some point. We'll get there, man. This is a great slate to play some of the smaller slates for sure because obviously there's like 6 games in the afternoon. What's up, Crispy? How's it going? Chris Hinshaw in the chat, of course. I know he's a part of the Noti-Gang. Jacob Downer's in here. How big of a concern is weather in Green Bay and Cleveland? We'll get to weather directly after this poll, guys. So I did make it so they would only be polls for 3 minutes total. So maybe I'll increase that. But basically, Mike Davis running away with this one, 60 votes in the chat. So good stuff, guys. John says, you go something on your lip. I thought I'd reach out. No donut. Spit, I think. Thank you. Yeah, shout out to week 1 when I had donut on my face. Thanks, man. Appreciate that. I'm with you because there was a couple people that were scared to actually tell me that I had donut on my face one time. We're all people here. I make mistakes. I'm not perfect. We're good now. I think it's spit. My mouth gets dry. We're still on Team T. No coffee right now. Trying to get over getting sick. All right, we got enough people telling me about lips. I'm sorry, guys. Thank you. Okay, so we got a couple new subscribers in the chat as well that wanted to be a part of these votes. All right, so Mike Davis is the chalk. We do have one other in the chat as well, which is interesting. Well, let's talk about, before we get to, like, obviously we'll go through the data sheet, all that good stuff. King was about to DM me. Okay, we're good. We're good. We're good. All right, so that's the first poll. But in terms of news and notes, let's just fly through a couple things, some of the Schefter bombs. One thing that I thought was kind of interesting, TJ Hawkinson looks like he's expected to play in week 10. He's still battling through that toe injury. Adam Schefter reported a bunch of different stuff last night, of course, as well as the Saints are expected to face a bunch of discipline for not wearing masks after their win last week. Wear masks, guys. Jerry Judy is expected to play in week 10. That's good. I know he's one of the top buy lows over there in the buy low model. So that's going to be one of those ones. The insane amount of air yards he still left on the field after a breakout week. He's still way up there. So he's not that expensive, which is nice, but he is a little bit banged up. Something to think about. Chris Carson is expected to return next week. So I don't know if we have a true Dallas type of situation over there. Because we do have Homer in that spot as well. But if you're looking to get contrarian in that game, we'll talk about that more, of course. The one that we're waiting on, guys, is Kenyon Drake. It seems like he has a good chance to play this week, but it is a game time decision. So that's going to be a late swap type of situation if we do want to get into Edmonds. The price is right for sure. A different way to go about, again, these chalky games. Joe Mixon will not play in week 10. We knew that. Gio Bernard in a tough spot against Pittsburgh in the, one of those spots where the volume should be there. Price is decent. Not a great matchup overall. I don't think there was a ton of crazy news that came through. I just want to make sure I didn't miss anything before we get to some of the weather stuff. Let's talk about weather for a second, guys. So you guys know me. I care about wind a lot more than rain, snow, that sort of thing, because that's what truly matters, right? So 15 mile per hour plus is kind of what we're looking for. Gusts obviously really matter. Looking into like what types of stadiums, apparently the height of stadiums is something we should be focused on also. But in terms of weather so far, guys, This is another week. I believe it was 2 weeks ago in week 8 where we had a ton of windy games. This stuff really matters. And I know there's probably some people out there like, oh, let's jump on one of these games. There's still was a lot of points in a couple of those games in week 8. Just historically, guys, you need offenses to go up and down the field to score touchdowns, of course, but the ownership discount you get, I don't think really makes up for the ceiling you're giving up in these type of game environments. Does that make sense? And that includes running backs, for the record. There's some stuff like people just like, oh, they're just going to run the ball a ton. Yeah, maybe there's a few more carries there, but they're probably between like the 20s anyway. You want touchdowns. You want these offenses being efficient, moving up and down the field. And that's so much harder to do when there's winds. So let's talk about some of the worst games for wind. Houston and Cleveland, sustained winds of 25 mile per hour plus, some stronger gusts as well. Again, this is a free resources at Roto Grinders. Kevin Roth does some awesome stuff with weather. Of course, you guys know Kevin. But I think it's really important to go through this on Sunday morning, not necessarily just the beginning of the week. That's kind of where I'm at on that. So 25 mile per hour winds, gusts up to 50. That's definitely going to affect some deep passing for Houston in particular, right? We know that they want to try and push the ball down the field. It's going to be a tougher spot for that to happen. The one thing in terms of Duke Johnson, which we'll get to, we did get one vote for Duke Johnson as the chalkiest player on the slate. My concern is we've seen this happen with Duke Johnson before, and it hasn't completely worked out for us. The one thing that I will say is that Deshaun Watson doesn't really check the ball down a ton to his running backs anyway. So that's always going to be a concern in spots like this. And with the wind, obviously the efficiency on both sides of this definitely in question, in my opinion. So we're definitely concerned with the Houston game. Jacksonville and Green Bay is another game that I am very concerned about. Almost the exact same in terms of the weather and the wind in Cleveland. But there's going to be a little bit of snow apparently in this one. Not that that's a big deal overall, but sustained winds. Those are the buzzwords. 25 mile per hour plus. So again, deeper passing, that sort of thing. Sure, guys like Aaron Jones, guys like Devonta Adams, they can for sure still get there. Absolutely. As I was looking through some of the better performances in wind over the last 5 or 6 years, Devonta Adams has some decent games in wind. It's because he can move all around the field. Rodgers still feels comfortable with him, all those things. Aaron Jones, all these guys can still have good games. But the game stack viability of it, I definitely think is not something I'm super interested in. In the later games, Cincinnati and Pittsburgh. Again, more wind, 20 to 30 mile per hour winds with gusts around 50. This is crazy. The fact that we have some amazing games, Seattle and the Rams. We have the Chargers is a decent game, but obviously this Arizona-Buffalo game, there's not this weather concern, guys. So they're going to be very high owned. They're going to be very high owned for a reason. A couple games, maybe not, I guess, to the top level of concern of Cincinnati and Pittsburgh. Jacksonville, Green Bay, Houston, Cleveland, Philly, and New York, the Giants. There's going to be some rain, 10 to 15 mile per hour winds. Looks like there could be a little bit of an increase as the game goes on. The one thing that I was kind of bummed about is this Tampa Bay and Carolina game. I thought this was going to be one of the games where we would actually not have to worry as much about weather. Sustained winds, 15 to 20 mile per hour gusts. So that's rough, guys. That's a lot of games. Like, we have 11 games on this slate. We just talked about 5 of them with wind concerns. So I always want to kind of make sure we touch on that. We'll touch on that again as we progress through the day. But I'm pumped that we have polls working. That's great. So let's do one more as we kind of move over to the data sheet and go position by position. I know you guys want my take on the picks, all that stuff. We got to warm things up a little bit. We got 500 people in the chat. Maybe there's a couple people here for the first time. Maybe. You never know. We got some people over on Twitch still. So let's do it. Let's do another one. The poll is currently underway. Apparently I have to end the poll. There we go. Top quarterback. This is a sub-only vote. YouTube subs only for votes here for it to actually register in the chat. So Kylo Murray, if you think he is the top quarterback, we're taking into consideration price here. I want you to put exclamation point vote space 1 in the chat. Kylo Murray, Josh Allen, Russell Wilson. I think that's pretty much the tier, the top tier for sure. If you do have someone else in mind, put exclamation point vote space 4 and then put in the chat who it is. Let's talk about it a little bit. Michael says, how do I feel about stacking Brees? I don't mind Brees. The ownership is in a weird spot. It's kind of borderline for me. But I like some one-offs in that game. Votes are working. This is great, guys. Appreciate you. And I know everyone that's voting is also a sub, too. So that means a lot, guys. Thanks for being here on a Sunday. Seriously. Good stuff. We got a lot of Kylo Murray votes so far. Josh Allen not too far behind. We're going to leave this up for 3 total minutes, guys. So make sure you get your votes in. No one's going to see it. Don't be shy. All that good stuff. This will be fun. Let's talk about Hopkins matchup. We'll get there, Aaron. Don't you worry, man. That's a game that we have to get right for sure. It's a game we definitely have to get right. Think the Niners were shut down, the run down? I don't think so. I'm not too scared of that matchup. You guys know I'm not a big matchup overall with stuff like that. 3rd and long, love the polls. This is fun, man. We got a bunch of them ready. Trust me, I spent like a good chunk of my morning like making a bunch of polls. So we'll do this before we get into like the actual analysis and stuff. It'll be kind of a nice little break for some of this stuff, I think, overall. You have a minute left to get in your vote. We have 90 votes. We got over 500 people in the chat right now. Let's try and get half of them to vote for this. By the way, guys, over 150 likes, 20 minutes into a stream. I don't think we've ever hit that before. Truly appreciate it. A lot of Kyler people in the chat. A lot of people on this Arizona and Buffalo game overall. Doozy voted for Kyler. What's up, Doozy? Top quarterback, do you mean best play or highest ownership? No, this is just best play. Who you think of best play on the slate is? We're taking into consideration price here. This is not ownership. I think the only one I'll really do for ownership is just going to be the first one of the day. Chalkiest player of the day. There's plenty of ownership projections out there. I want to know what you guys think in terms of like who the actual best play is, right? It's Sunday morning. We've had the whole week to think about this stuff. Expensive stack for sure, Alpha. I'm with you. Love it, guys. We're all the way up over 100 votes now. 10 seconds. Who will take this one down? Looks like it's going to be Kyler Murray. We do have some others in the chat, though. More others than I expected. We know quarterback is relatively flat overall. Good stuff. All right, so let's do this, guys. Let's move over. This is the data sheet that's available at linemovement.com. You'll go to linemovement.com, go to resources tab, NFL data table. This is a free resource that used to be only available to my Twitch subscribers. It is each position. We have some Vegas data in here, obviously from blitzbet.eu. We also have some ownership projections in here. All this stuff in general will be updated as the morning kind of progresses. One of the things that I'm super focused on at the quarterback position overall is trying to target guys that are willing to chuck the ball deep, so average intended air yards. Gonna have a video out for this next week. We have a few things. Looks like we have a couple things in format-wise that I want to fix on here anyways, but there will be a walkthrough. The essential like reason for this page, this is what I'm using to build lineups each and every Sunday morning, right? So I want to really focus on a few key stats at each position. So just for example, weighted opportunity rating at wide receiver is something that I always talk about, trying to target these situations where there's going to be deeper targets down the field, right? So I think that's something that we should always kind of be looking to. But each position, a couple of things that really matter, some Vegas data, ownership, what else you need. So at quarterback, guys, let's talk about Kyler Murray. So Kyler Murray, he is 8K on DraftKings. He's obviously very expensive. This spot against Buffalo, highest total on the slate. We know there's going to be a lot of pace. There's going to be a lot of dropbacks on each side. Tight spread, hopefully a back and forth affair here overall is what we're really focused on. So Kyler is my number one quarterback on the slate. I don't think it's that close if you can find kind of the money for it. I think Josh Allen's right there. He's definitely had some floor games over these last couple months for sure, but the ceiling's definitely there. There's some nice weapons on each side to stack with. You guys don't need me to tell you that this Arizona and Buffalo game is one of the best on the slate. So I like Kyler Murray a ton. He's someone that has really progressed over the last few weeks as a passer, and we know what he gives on the ground, right? So if we're just going to sort by rushing yards overall, he's one of those guys that I'm really focused on getting to today for sure. So let's do this. Kylo Murray, if you're not playing Kylo Murray on this slate because you can't quite get up there in terms of salary, it looks like we had a decent amount of people that were on Russell Wilson. It looks like the ownership on Russell Wilson will be much lower than Kyler. I think if people are going to try and get all the way up to that range, it's going to be a spot where they're probably going to try and get into this Buffalo and Arizona game. So Russell Wilson, the Rams have been very good against Seattle, at least historically, over the last couple of years. So that's something to pay attention to. For whatever reason, they kind of just give Russ fits a little bit. That said, I really like this game. Very clear options to stack with overall. I think that this Rams defense is the real deal. So we'll talk about that. They're one of the cheaper options on the slate when we get to defense. But I do think that it's an interesting spot to save $300, kind of pay up a little bit more to be contrarian. Not that Russ is going to be low owned by any means, but I do think Kyler is going to be significantly higher owned, especially in the contests that I'm playing, some of the mid to high stakes type of stuff, smaller fields. Always want to remind you guys too that I would focus personally on some of the smaller field sizes. Sure, it's fun to try and turn $20 into $1 million, but the odds of beating like 100,000 people, it's extremely hard to do, guys. But beating 250 people, you don't have to be perfect. You can correlate. You can make good leverage plays. You can hand build some lineups. I think that's the way to go. So past Kyler and Russ, we haven't probably talked enough about Josh Allen. He's 7,500. Obviously, Stephon Diggs, Smokey Brown, some key ways that we can stack up the Buffalo side of the ball. I don't think the run game is going to be super effective in this one overall. Allen's one of those guys that's very matchup dependent. And what I mean by that is he has been a lot better in weak matchups, and he has been a lot worse in hard matchups. And you can't say that about every quarterback, right? There's certain guys that they're matchup proof. I'm not saying that Josh Allen isn't one of those guys, because he is someone that will give us a lot on the ground overall. But I think we can agree in the chat, right, that this Arizona matchup is a good matchup, right? Like, there's going to be a lot of plays. Arizona's been giving it up, all that good stuff. His rushing ability, obviously, we know where he's going with it. There's a lot of value in a condensed target share. I do like him on DraftKings a lot when you get that savings, right? $500 in savings. Someone mentioned in the chat that savings isn't an issue. Maybe. We do have some decent value, obviously, with Mike Davis at the Stone Man. We'll talk about him. But I don't completely agree that 500 can't go a long way. I think it's interesting. So the one quarterback we haven't talked about in these games in particular is Jared Goff. And Jared Goff's someone that I struggle with. You guys know me. I've been doing like 2 or 3 years. I've been just telling you guys, play these dual threat quarterbacks. The floor is there. The ceiling is there. Jared Goff, in order to get to that ceiling, he's got to throw 3 or 4 touchdowns. He does. But we saw it like Josh Allen last week. There's not a better get right spot than Seattle. This game sets up so well for points, guys. So, yes, I think on FanDuel, where it gets a little bit more touchdown heavy, I have a little bit more interest in Goff, but some clear weapons to pair with him, right? Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods. These guys are basically covering so much of the target market share in general, of the offense market share, that it just is very easy to stack. Makes an easy bring back. Originally this week, I thought that maybe Robert Woods would end up being kind of lower owned in general. It's kind of similar. Like, we'll get to wide receiver, but Kupp versus Woods, in a vacuum, I prefer Kupp. So that's kind of where I'm at on that one in terms of bring backs. We'll talk about DK Metcalf. Everyone wants to talk about this matchup against Ramsey. Have you been watching this guy play? These wide receiver cornerback matchups is the best thing ever, because it brings down the ownership of some of these elite wide receivers where they're really, let's talk about him being a bad matchup for the cornerback, right? So I love Metcalf again today. So past that, I guess those 2 elite games, I have some concerns with Aaron Rodgers and the wind. We'll circle back to the wind stuff at some point, probably in about, 15, 20 minutes again, if you missed the beginning when we talked through all the games with some significant weather concerns. So Aaron Rodgers is one of my favorite plays early on in the week, backing away a little bit from that one. I think he's too expensive for this game environment. Deshaun Watson, same thing. I was so excited about this price tag for Deshaun Watson. But wind for a guy that wants to push the ball down the field against a team that wants to run a lot, I have some concerns. If there's a guy that can make this game turn into a shootout, maybe it's Deshaun Watson. But maybe next week, if his price stays around this, we'll be a little bit more interested in that. If we're paying down a little bit more, what do we think about Justin Herbert? It's a pace-up spot, Chargers versus Dolphins. This Dolphins defense is good. There's no doubt about it. There's some easy pairing options with Justin Herbert, so we like that. He's someone that, if we're just looking at pure efficiency, one of the things that I really like to look at is completion percent above or below expectation. It's a next-gen stat that's publicly available. Basically gives us an idea of how well the guy is actually playing. Justin Herbert is balling out, guys. So Russell Wilson, Joe Burrow, Kylo Murray, Justin Herbert in this metric this season. So the two rookies playing extremely well. We'll get to Joe Burrow in a second. But I like Justin Herbert a lot in this pace-up game. I think bring backs with Parker on the other side make a ton of sense. Some people talking about Tua in the chat. I don't mind Tua, actually. I've warmed up to that one. One of my one-on-one clients brought him up yesterday. I think Tua is kind of interesting. We saw him use his legs a little bit last week. I have some concerns overall because I think that there is a huge mismatch at the line of scrimmage in this one. The Chargers D-line, very strong, probably top 5 against this Dolphins offensive line, very bad. Probably bottom 5 again. So that would be my concern with Tua, is he's not going to have a lot of time in this spot. We saw what he did against the Rams. I'm not saying it's the same exact thing, but think about it, right? The Rams like to bring pressure, so do the Chargers. So that would be my concern with Tua. Let's talk about this pay down option of Joe Burrow. At 1%, if this holds, this is the late swap target, guys, for me. So one of the things that we should talk about, and let's go full screen for this for a second, because I think this is super important. So one of the things that's really important on this slate overall is we have some chalk running backs early. We've got Aaron Jones and we've got Mike Davis. So if one of those guys fails completely, or maybe they just don't quite get there overall, say just for the sake of argument, Aaron Jones drops 12 points today. You're behind, right? You're very behind. So the stack that you have later on, maybe you have a Seattle and LA Rams stack. Maybe you have a Buffalo and Arizona stack. You got to make moves big time. We're trying to get to the top of tournaments. I know a lot of you guys are playing tournaments these days, not necessarily cash games. So late swap on this, I'm going to say it. You guys are going to get tired of me saying it. Late swap on this slate is so damn important. More than almost any slate we've had this entire year. There are 6 games to choose from. So we got to find ways to get different. And obviously there's some weather games, right? So how can we get thoughtful about, obviously watching the weather, that sort of stuff. So obviously this Cincinnati and Pittsburgh game, that's a big time concern. But I think that the way that if they're going to kind of dink and dunk down the field against this Pittsburgh team that's going to bring pressure at 5,700, I think he's at least a reasonable option in late swap scenarios. I'm not there. I don't think the game environment's strong enough to start out there. But if you make it there, I definitely wouldn't fault you for that. Aaron Rasmussen in the chat, and GPP, you're behind for sure. Exactly. So we're not trying to cash, guys. If you're just trying to cash tournaments, it's a great way to kind of hurt your bankroll in the long run. Anyone else at quarterback, guys? Drew Brees, Tom Brady. I liked Tom Brady a lot on FanDuel in particular, because I think there's different ways you can stack him and get creative. You could even play him with Leonard Fournette, playing like that James White role. Obviously, a lot more 3 wide receiver slets last week with Antonio Brown. We'll get to that. It's one of the games where there's some weather concerns, though, so I'm backing away a little bit. There's a chance, guys, that these 1% or these 1 p.m. games are going to be kind of rough overall. Some people talking about Wentz. His price is okay. I'm with you on Wentz and his price for sure. He's 5,900. This giant spot. Again, weather concerns. My concern with Wentz is I think he's very hard to stack. I know that Goddard is going to be extremely popular. They're healthy. This offensive line is healthy. The pass catchers are mostly healthy. We got Ray Gore. We got Fulgham. We got Goddard. We got Miles Sanders. So I think that maybe Carson is more of I'm going to game stack it or I'm going to avoid. I don't think single stacks make a ton of sense with Carson Wentz because it's very conceivable that you might just miss. You know what I mean? One of the things that I'm trying to pay a little bit more attention to as well is adjusted red zone pass percentage. Shout out James McCool. It's a metric that he created for us. So teams that like to throw a lot in the red zone, I think is something I need to focus on a little bit more. So Carson Wentz right up there. Obviously, they've had some injuries on the offensive line, Miles Sanders, all that stuff. So keep that in mind. Philly, Denver, Chargers, Detroit, Houston, Tampa Bay. These teams do pass a lot in the red zone. It's important. It's on the other side of this, last week we talked about this with Dalvin Cook, right? Minnesota, they run the ball a ton in the red zone, right? There's value in that when touchdowns are going to skew weeks. So I think that's kind of where I'm at on quarterback, guys. Let's do another poll. I know we got some people in here. We're just about to break 700 people. Appreciate each and every one of you. Let's do it, guys. Top running back on the Week 10 slate. We're taking into consideration price. And this is a sub-only vote. So if you're here for the first time, would love it if you would get involved in the polls, consider subscribing, all of that good stuff. So if you want to vote for Aaron Jones, for example, you'll put !vote space 3 in the chat. That's how this thing works. So let's see where we're at on running back, guys. Top play, price considered. It is a sub-only vote. Appreciate you, Aaron. Hopefully I gave you a little bit of something you hadn't heard elsewhere. The quarterback position is relatively condensed this week, I think, especially with some of these poor game environments. We'll get to some stacks at the end too, so make sure you stick around for the end. We'll be here right up before the Line Movement show. If you haven't checked out the Line Movement NFL show, it is every Sunday morning directly after this at 11 a.m. Eastern time. We'll break down this entire slate again. Whoa. This is interesting, guys. So if anyone missed the vote earlier, Mike Davis was the chalkiest player on the slate. Yet we have 3 votes in the chat for Mike Davis actually being the top running back play. Interesting. All right, a little bit of a comeback here. Good stuff, guys. Yeah, just a reminder, if you're voting and you're not subscribed to the channel, it won't register. So make sure you subscribe if you're here for the first time. We got some Chubb people in the chat. Chubb and Sanders. I like those plays, Mike, and GPPs for sure. So I might have to, should I extend these polls? Are they too quick? 3 minutes? Is that enough time for you guys? Maybe I'll make the next one 5. I want to make sure we get through all the polls that I have ready for you guys, because like this is a collaborative thing, right? This is why you guys are here live on a Sunday. It's to get involved. I want to see where you guys are at too before we kind of dive into the analysis. Over 700 people in here. Good stuff, guys. We're about halfway through the DFS season, so stick with us. I'll do my best to bring you guys information. I don't have all the answers. I'm the first one to say that. Anyone that tells you that they do, you guys are a part of it, right? No one's better than anyone. I'll let you know what I'm doing, and we'll go from there, right? A lot of votes in the chat. Aaron says that 3 minutes is fine. Yeah, maybe we can't have people just sitting back. We got to get through all these polls. We got to get through the plays, all this stuff. So Aaron Jones right now leading the way with 38 votes, 40 votes. Alvin Kamara, about half. I'm kind of interested in Kamara a little bit today. I think he might go a little bit overlooked because everyone wants to just hammer Aaron Jones. We have some pace concerns in that game with Kamara and the Saints overall, but this Aaron Jones game, everyone's don't sit on this weather, guys. This affects running backs too. It affects the entire game. This Jacksonville and Green Bay game, if it's just a lot of running, there's going to be less plays overall. That's also not good. Less touchdown opportunities, all that stuff. So let's get into running back, guys. Again, if you're here for the first time, this is linemovement.com. This is the resource tab, NFL data table. We make this available to you guys for free, just for coming and hanging out on the site. And this is something that I used to give away to all my Twitch subscribers. But now there's no paywall, absolutely free. If you haven't checked out all the content at linemovement.com, you're definitely doing it wrong as well. We got some blitzbet.eu Vegas data in here. We got ownership projections. We got a bunch of stuff for each position as well. We do have a super chat right now. Edits, I appreciate that, man. Thank you for your $1.99. Seriously. In season long, Hawkinson with a bad toe or Ingram. I'm on Ingram today in that scenario. I think Ingram's a really solid leverage play off of Goddard this week as well. Bunch of new subs in the chat, guys. Appreciate you. I'm glad you guys are enjoying the polls and want to get a part of them for sure. Let's make sure I don't miss any of these ones in here. Andrew Quano, thanks for being with us, man. Or Oano, sorry if I mispronounced it, man. I'm the worst with that. You'll get to know me. Kustin, thanks for being here, man. Seriously. Anyone that's here for the first time, let us know in the chat where you found us. We'll keep the polls rolling as well. All right, so at the running back position, guys, I do have Mike Davis projected for the most touches on the slate, and he is the Stoneman. The problem is it's probably one of the worst possible matchups. We've seen Christian McCaffrey fail in these spots before against Tampa Bay. But man, guys, is it really hard to just avoid this Stoneman price tag on DraftKings in particular. On FanDuel, you can make an argument that you need ceiling, all of that stuff. But Mike Davis is kind of one of those plays that I hate the term free square, but he makes everything work with your lineup. And even if you don't play Mike Davis, say that Mike Davis, what is his failure in this spot? 12 points? 9 points? It's not going to kill you. It's really not. I don't think you gain a lot by fading Mike Davis. Because then where are you at in your roster? Like you don't have some of the studs that you're going to need in general. So I think that Mike Davis versus Duke Johnson, I don't think it's even a conversation. I think Mike Davis is a better play. You save $1,000. Duke Johnson, worse game environment for sure. More concerns in this Houston-Cleveland game. A quarterback that doesn't like to check it down a lot. Tampa Bay, this is an interesting thing. Like we saw it in prime time. Obviously, Drew Brees kind of picks apart this Tampa Bay defense. One of the biggest problems, and Matt Harmon talked about this on my show earlier this week, one of the biggest problems with Tampa Bay in this pass rush is, yes, they blitz a lot, but they don't like truly get home and get sacks a lot. So if the quarterback is willing to sit back there and actually get the ball out quick, Teddy Bridgewater, one of those players, then they can have some success here. So if Mike Davis ends up getting a bunch of checkdowns, he's just too cheap, guys. It's just too cheap. So I think this is one where you don't overthink it a ton. On FanDuel, sure, if you think you can get to a more unique stack and not have to pay this $5,400, there's definitely other options. I think on the other side of this game, Leonard Fournette is super interesting, playing that James White type of role. I think it's interesting. So Mike Davis, we don't need to talk about him anymore. $5,400 for Gio Bernard, similar, right? Against Pittsburgh. He's a lot more expensive. We saw him get a lot of volume last week. I mean, 20 touches. There's not like these elite bell cow type of running backs on this slate overall. So I have some interest in Gio. Probably more of a late swap type of play for me overall. But it's interesting. I want to make sure I'm not missing anything in the chat as we go here. Fade Davis for Samuel in the same game. Logan, I think that's kind of sharp. Who's gonna be there if Mike Davis fails? Samuel. Samuel's getting all that work kind of in the run game, even around the goal line. There's packages for him. I don't think it's so much that he's a leverage play off of Mike Davis. I just think in Mike Davis lineups, maybe Samuel doesn't make as much sense, right? Because they definitely negatively correlate from a touchdown perspective. So I'm talking about Chubb in the chat. Yeah, let's look at the high end of the pricing spectrum. Chubb is 6,800. Kind of in that range. Miles Sanders, Nick Chubb. I think some of those guys, especially if this ownership holds, 5% for Nick Chubb, 12% for Miles Sanders. Wow, he's gained some steam as the week went on. I thought he was going to be a lot lower owned. I like Miles Sanders a little bit less at that ownership. If we got him at sub 10, I think I'd be a little bit more interested. A lot of mouths to feed in Philly right now, guys. There's only so many touchdowns to go around. But it's interesting. But Nick Chubb, we saw this run game just work a lot better in general when Chubb was there. Like Kareem Hunt, still going to have his passing role. I would suggest that, or I would assume that Nick Chubb is just going to walk back into the role that he had before. Not a ton of pass catching upside, but the price at 6,800 I think is at least intriguing in this spot where we know it's going to be tougher to move the ball through the air. Again, the ceiling though overall, guys, in these bad weather games is something that we have to talk about. So at the top, let's talk about Alvin Kamara versus Aaron Jones. So Aaron Jones in our poll had 43% of the vote. Alvin Kamara, 14% of the vote. So if Alvin Kamara is going to be half the ownership, roughly, of Aaron Jones, I think he makes a really nice tournament play today. Just because there's this narrative out there, right, with Kamara that like now that that Michael Thomas is back, Kamara's passing game involvement just goes down the tubes. And yeah, it's definitely a factor for sure. But we're playing a game against others. We're trying to beat others. If there is a scenario where Aaron Jones fails, maybe Kamara for a little bit more expensive is one that people didn't get to. The ceiling is comparable, in my opinion. Still, even with Michael Thomas there. So I think it's interesting. Not a great spot against San Francisco. Obviously a better on paper matchup for Aaron Jones. If they do end up just leaning on the running game heavily, I could see Aaron Jones getting in the box a couple times for sure. But from a leverage perspective, I like the idea of targeting these guys that are going to see volume that might just see significantly lower ownership, right? Like that's what we're trying to do here. Last Ron, Murky Merc, Edits. Thanks for subscribing to the channel, guys. Thanks for being with us. Let us know in the chat where you found us. Welcome to the community. Before we move on, at running back, guys, I do want to do, I guess, touch on one thing quickly. I haven't done this yet. We do have a Patreon now. So for just $1 per month, 25 cents per week, you can get access to our premium Discord chat. So continue this conversation even when the live streams aren't happening. It's been great to see you guys kind of make friends, talk strategy throughout the week. It's been really cool. We also have an exclusive weekly DraftKings tournament. Play against me, play against the community. I give away a $30 Amazon gift card every week. Not trying to make money off of this. Obviously, it's $1, but even the profits that I am making, I'm just putting right back into prizes for this DraftKings tournament. We're doing some in the community as well for Showdown, that sort of thing. So that's been cool. We have a NFL Red Zone stream room. So come in, sweat the games with us. I guess cheer, tilt, all that good stuff. You'll be able to watch it in there, which is really cool. Also, a 15 to 30 minute live stream directly before NFL kickoff. This is just, I wanted to give you guys my final thoughts. The only place this will be streamed is in the Discord for the Patreon. So if you're enjoying kind of your experience this morning, I'd say toss us 25 cents a month. Come join the community. The Patreon has been really fun. I really want to continue to focus on trying to build that. We do have a super chat again. Gary, thank you for your $4.99, man. Very generous of you. Not necessary, but thank you very much. Would you start Devonta Adams and Christian Kirk or Metcalf and Hopkins? Oh, man. Metcalf and Hopkins, man. For sure. Metcalf is a straight ball. I don't care what his matchup is like. Hopkins, yeah, you can say that he didn't see as much volume overall with Christian Kirk back, but also Hopkins left a few on the field with penalties last week, too, that people don't want to talk about. So his volume, yeah, it's a little bit more fragile than someone like Devonta Adams, but the game environment couldn't be better. Like, I'm not trying to move my way out of Metcalf and Hopkins in the two best games on the slate. Good question, though, man. The Devonta Adams question is a lot tougher for sure. Versi, thank you for subscribing, man. Really appreciate that. Let's go back up. Let's dive a little bit deeper into running back. We still have tons of time here. We still have like about, I don't know, a little over an hour. Let's go back to the screen share. So what about James Robinson at 6,600? I've heard some people talking about him a little bit. Always want to mention too, I get a bunch of data from Sports Info Solutions. Their data hub, I think, is one of the best things out there. One of the things that I'm kind of focused on as well is man coverage versus zone coverage. Not necessarily this is the worst matchup on paper for running backs. I don't think there's a ton of value in that. But coverages, I do think that there is something to be said for that. So James Robinson, in particular, has done really well in the passing game against zone coverage. The Packers play 78% in zone coverage. So if you just kind of look at it from just a pure targets perspective, against man this year, only 2 targets for James Robinson. Against zone, 25 targets. The problem I see with Robinson overall is when Chris Thompson has been healthy, he's actually been running more routes than James Robinson. It's very close, 121 to 100. Even though Robinson has slightly out-targeted him. Maybe the ceiling through the air isn't super high for James Robinson, again, in this spot against Green Bay. Sub 10% ownership. Decent price for a guy that's going to touch the ball 20 times. I think that if you think that this ownership holds, James Robinson makes a decent tournament play. Yeah. McKinnon's an interesting one because it's in the later game overall, right? This New Orleans game's later, right? Am I crazy? I'm doing all these shorter slates. Yeah, the New Orleans games is 425. So that one's interesting. I can't project him for like a ton of touches overall. 15 touches is like kind of like my floor of usually when I like would be considering someone. So Jerick McKinnon at 5,600, especially if you're making these like mini stacks, and we'll talk about this a lot too. One of the things that Owen, I'll try and see. I know you retracted your message, but I see your super chat. Your next question, I'll make sure and get to it. So Jerick McKinnon, 5,600, where a lot of people are probably going to go either the Gio Bernard or the Duke Johnson range. I think makes a lot of sense if you are playing one-off Kamaras or one-off Michael Thomas plays. Add in the running game on the other side with Jerick McKinnon at 5,600. I think he's interesting. I think his ceiling through the air in this spot is one that makes a lot of sense. We've heard them talk about getting him a little bit more involved. So I think that's interesting. Another guy that I probably haven't talked about enough today, I love Leonard Fournette. I think this Tampa Bay and Carolina game is really interesting for points overall, even though there's a little bit of weather concerns. Tom Brady just loves checking the ball down to his running backs. You know what I mean? He loves it. Samuel seems like the best leverage play on the slate. I like Samuel as a leverage play. I also don't think you need to overthink the Mike Davis play. He's 4K. He's going to touch the ball 20 times. You know what I mean? Gavin likes Ayuk. So you like Ayuk better than Richie James, Gavin? I don't know if you can just completely X out Richie James after what he did last week. Obviously, still a lot of injuries and stuff in that offense. So I like the Ayuk play a lot. He's going to be lower owned probably. He gets a little bit of run in the run game as well. I think it's interesting. Gibson and McKissick being slept on. Carlos, I think that there's a few of those that are kind of sharp. Gibson's one that I struggle with. There's so much volatility there, though. And people talk about volatility as a negative. It's not really. It's really not. Not in tournaments. So, like, the volatility of Antonio Gibson, he's had games where he saw 9 rush attempts, and then he's had games where he saw 20. You know what I mean? So I think that's okay. Maybe larger field stuff for Antonio Gibson. Not really on my radar for like super single entry type of. It's like borderline volume for me. But yeah, I don't think it's terrible. On a week where like the mid-range here, there's a ton of leverage overall. I think it makes some sense. McKissick's the one that's a little bit harder for me as I can't really get him to that 15 touch floor. But man, does Alex Smith love to check it down to his running backs. So McKissick at 4,900. If you're throwing something in something super large field, yeah, I can get behind that maybe. Someone talked about Hawkinson earlier in the chat as one of the best tournament plays on the slate. I don't necessarily think you're wrong. A McKissick Hawkinson on the other side, a little, again, these mini correlations, guys, so important. As you're just building out, yeah, everyone wants to talk about the main stacks. As you're building that out, you have to figure out ways to correlate the rest of your team as well. Owen, with the super chat, appreciate you, my man. J.K. Dobbins, Null, or Lindsey? So we got a couple guys not on the main slate there, so I want to make sure that I... Is it PPR or non-PPR, Owen? Because I think that definitely matters. I'm going to assume that it's PPR, though. So Dobbins, Null, or Lindsey? Dobbins for me. Yep. Good question, though. Thanks for subscribing, Nate. Appreciate you, my man. A lot of people like Samuel. I wonder what his ownership is going to be like. I think enough people are going to galaxy brain their way through that. Anything else at running back, guys? I think we covered most of the guys that I'm considering. I think Josh Jacobs, James Conner in this high 6K range, depending on where you think their ownership is going to be, if it's both sub 10%, I think that their volume should be there. I think they make reasonable tournament plays. I like Josh Jacobs a lot on the other side of Drew Lock, Denver stacks, or even mini stacks with like Judy, Fant, bring it back with Josh Jacobs, Judy, KJ Hamler, bring it back with Josh Jacobs. I think that makes sense. Alex doesn't want another leg injury, quick checkdowns. I buy that. I buy that for sure. Crazy to start Alex Smith? I think so. I think there's just too much upside with some of these quarterbacks, man. Thoughts on Miles Sanders? Yeah, we talked about Miles Sanders a little bit earlier. I like him a lot. My concern is that all the way up to 12%, I liked him a lot better at sub 1%. But 6,400, the volume is going to be there and a good matchup against the Giants. I like Miles Sanders. Miles Sanders has burned me before. I will say that. I will say that. All right, let's keep this train rolling so I can have time for some more polls. Obviously, have time for some more questions at the end. Guys, if you're here for the first time, we have almost 900 people in the chat. Maybe we get there. Maybe we break 1,000 for the second time this year. I think it was week 8. We broke 1,000 people, which was really awesome. So hopefully we can do that. The way that you can help, toss a like on this video if you haven't already. That'll help us get in front of more eyes. For anyone that wasn't here earlier, let's touch on weather again quickly. So I'll try and keep this one a little bit shorter so we can get over to wide receivers. I know there's a lot to talk about there. But some of the games that I'm really concerned about today, Houston and Cleveland, looks like we're looking at sustained 25-mile-per-hour winds, some very strong gusts. If you haven't checked out Kevin Roth and his work at Roto Grinders on the weather side of things, that's basically what I look at on Sunday mornings. So 15-mile-per-hour plus is what we really want to focus on. And people will talk about one of these other games that's definitely in the red category, the scary category, Jacksonville and Green Bay. I think that people will just say, oh, they're going to run the ball a ton. Aaron Jones, jam him in. I like Aaron Jones. I will have some Aaron Jones. But go into the play knowing that there's a chance that this limits the ceiling for the offense as a whole. We still need touchdowns. We still need efficiency. If there's a lot of running on both sides of the ball, it means less plays, which is also not good for volume. So there's that. There's going to be a little bit of snow in Green Bay as well, if you care about that. I don't care about that as much as I care about these sustained 25-mile-per-hour winds. Definitely some strong gusts, they're saying as well. So the downfield passing of this one, I think, is really tough to get behind. The next game that definitely looks like it has a ton of concerns, Cincinnati and Pittsburgh. I like the idea of Joe Burrow in theory as a late swap. I like it less now with some heavy winds. Again, 20 to 30 mile per hour, gusts around 50. I'm just like staying away from those games, guys. There's so many good games to attack from a stack perspective. Seahawks, Rams, Bills, Cardinals, Chargers, Dolphins, up and pace games with no weather concerns. Let's focus on that today, guys. If you take one thing from this, I want you to make sure that you late swap on this slate where there's a lot of games happening later on than normal. But I want you guys to just avoid these like epically bad weather games. In my opinion, it's just not worth it. A couple games that not necessarily to that tier of concern, but Philly and the New York Giants, a little bit of rain, 15 to 20 mile per hour winds late, 10 to 15 early, it looks like. So it's increasing as the day goes on. That scares me a little bit for some offenses that haven't been that efficient in general. Let's be real. And Tampa Bay, Carolina, sustained winds, 15 to 20 per hour gusts. That one's like decreasing a little bit later in the game. I'll say this about Tampa and Carolina, though. Neither of these guys are pushing the ball down the field. Bridgewater and Tom Brady, they're not pushing the ball down the field deep anyway. So it affects someone like Watson a lot more, right? He wants to push the ball down the field. Rodgers, his average intended air yards is there, very high. So I'm not as worried about the Tampa Bay and Carolina game, if that makes sense. All right, guys, wide receiver. Let's do another poll. I'm so pumped these are working. We're going to do 2 wide receiver polls here. Top elite wide receiver play. So in order to vote in the chat, you'll go ! vote space 1. If you think Devonta Adams is the top elite wide receiver, we're taking into consideration price, but these guys are all expensive. Who are we on today on DraftKings? Who are we on? These polls are going to go for 3 minutes. This is a sub-only poll, so the only way that it's going to register in the chat is if you are subscribed to the channel. So if you're here for the first time, toss me a sub and get involved. Let's see where we're at on the elite wide receivers on this slate. And while we're letting these kind of flow in, we always have at least one question about late swap, so I want to touch on it quickly. So late swap is extremely important in DFS in particular, because especially on a slate like this where there's going to be some chalky running backs early, it's actually a perfect slate to talk about this. So Mike Davis, Aaron Jones, going to be very popular. If one of those guys fails, maybe a couple of those guys fail, we got to figure out ways that we're also going to pass people to get back in the game, right? There's a lot of great plays later on, but if you've already had some failures early on, you missed in some spots of your lineup, we're trying to get to the very top of tournaments. And the only way you get there is by passing people. So if you already have a failure, you're better off switching to something for a little bit more leverage. So a little bit more of a lower owned stack. So in like the 4 p.m. games in particular, we know we have this Cardinals and Bills game. We know we have this Rams and Seahawks game. But there's some other situations where there might not be as much ownership. So some leverage that I'm thinking of. Originally, I was thinking maybe Cincinnati and this Pittsburgh game would offer leverage. I kind of like this Denver and Las Vegas game. Guys like KJ Hamler, if people are scared of Jerry Judy and Noah Fant coming off those injuries, like we want to focus on the leverage in that regard. We have 1 minute left of this poll. We're a little bit spread out on the elite wide receiver poll, which is interesting. We got 26 votes for Stephon Diggs right now. About 30% of the vote is Stephon Diggs. A lot more Michael Thomas people than I thought. You guys aren't scared. You're too sharp. Very interesting. I think it's possible that maybe we've got how many? We've got 89 votes in here right now. I think we've got, just judging by the chat, just flowing right now. We probably have more than that. If you're worried that your vote didn't count, you do have to be subscribed to the channel for it to count towards these numbers. We are spread out at wide receiver. Interesting. Not a lot of people going the Devonta Adams route. Obviously, the price tag, $9K in a terrible game environment. I will say this, when I was looking into like historically really tough weather or tough wind situations, there's some spots where Devonta Adams has still gotten there on touchdowns, right? He's still used around the goal line a lot. You don't necessarily have to push the ball deep down the field to someone like Devonta Adams. He's not like a Stephon Diggs where he's going to be getting all these deep targets, right? Where we're a lot more concerned about weather. So that's the poll, guys. I'll keep it open so you guys can actually still see it. But we're definitely we're in a spot here where we're a little bit spread out. Not as many DK Metcalf people. Are we concerned about the matchup for him? Because I'm not. I think he's very matchup independent right now. Guys, we might hit 300 likes for, I think, the first time ever, which would be really cool. So before we get into the data table, let's do another wide receiver poll and get these out of the way. So we talked about the elite options. Let's complete this poll. 5K or less wide receivers. We've got Josh Reynolds. Obviously, if you're just coming in here for the first time, in order to place your vote, you have to be a subscriber of my channel, but you also have to play !vote space and then the number. So if you think that Josh Reynolds is the best 5K or under wide receiver on DraftKings today, you'll put a !vote space 1 in the chat. So we got Josh Reynolds, Devontae Parker, Curtis Samuel, who a lot of people have been talking about today, Jakeem Grant, KJ Hamler, or other. If you do put other, I still need you to vote space 6, but let me know in the chat who you're on. Yankees, thanks for your super chat, man. Are these polls ownership game theory considered? I think so, yeah. I think it's like best overall play. We play a lot of tournaments around here. So I think, yeah, take into consideration price, take into consideration ownership. What do you think the best play is? I can only make the title so long. That's a good question, though, Yankees. Thank you for your super chat, man. Very generous of you. Armando is on DK. Interesting. So the goal is Soul, just so you know. So !vote and then 1. You have to put vote in the, just so the bot can actually register it, my man. All right. A lot of Josh Reynolds people in the chat. He is in the buy low model as well. Shout out Josh Hermsmeyer. So I think he's going to be the chalk of these cheaper guys. Devontae Parker, very popular. I like the Parker call a lot, guys. I like it. Hey, Miguel, thanks for stopping by, man. Good luck this week. Appreciate you, my man. Thanks for being here. Jalen Reagor as a solid flex play. And season long, yeah, for sure. I'm a little bit nervous in DFS that that's a little bit too much of a spread out target share right now, but it's interesting. Doozy, vote 6, Gabriel Davis. Doozy, I'm not sure. Let's see if it actually registered it. This would be actually a good test. So if you do vote 6, it has to be its own individual one. So I probably need a different, I think Family Man did the same thing. So in order to get your vote 6 in, you have to do that separately and then put in the player on maybe the next line. I'll think of something different for other. So Family Man says Tim Patrick, Doozy, he likes Gabriel Davis. I think that's sharp, man. That's one of the ones that Leone brought up in our chat last night. If we're trying to get different with this Arizona and Buffalo game, that's one way to do it. Hey, Joe, would you take Parker or Samuel in a cash game at wide receiver? So I'd imagine you already have Mike Davis, so I probably would not play Samuel in a cash game because I think they definitely negatively correlate. I prefer Parker by a pretty significant margin in that scenario. Long-time sub, first-time caller. What's up, Sean? How's it going, man? Can you do a video on how to effectively late swap? I actually have a late swap video. So if you go to my channel and just search late swap on the videos, you'll see it. I did one before, I believe, the playoff weeks last year. Maybe we'll update that at some point. A lot of people talking about late swap. Appreciate it, man. Jonathan, thank you for your sub, man. Welcome to the polls. So a lot of Devontae Parker people. 96 votes. I'm not going to move on. We got almost 900 people here in the chat, guys. I'm not moving on until at least, like, what? A tenth of those people vote? So let's get it up over 100. Let's do this, guys. As we're waiting for these last few votes to come in here. Oh, I realize you can't vote because it's actually closed. I'm going to raise that time up, I think, a little bit next week. So one of the things, too, one of the most fun things of my entire week is the Tiltspace. So you guys haven't checked out the Tiltspace yet. It is over on the Line Movement YouTube channel. Myself, Peter Overzet, Michael Leone, we go through all of our high stakes lineups. Obviously, Leone playing the Thunderdome every week at the 5K buy-in. We do a bunch of stuff on our own as well. We've already moved our bankroll all the way up from 15K up over 50K. We've had a couple rough weeks, hoping to get back on track. We play the Super Contest in Vegas if you're into some bets against the spread. We go through all of it, guys. Normally, it's at 6:30 p.m. Eastern time, but this week, we're going to go live at 5:30 Eastern time. We're going to go live a little bit early. It's too fun of a slate. There's too many games in the afternoon to talk about. So the Tiltspace is a great time, guys. There's definitely, just check out the link in the description over the Line Movement channel. I guarantee you, come hang out with us, sweat the games, all that good stuff. BSB in the chat. What's up, Big Show? How's it going, my man? You voted on 6. What was your other wide receiver cheap play that you liked, BSB? BSB is one of the biggest contributors to this whole community, man. Happy to have you with us again on a Sunday. All right, enough votes. Here's where we're at. Josh Reynolds, Devontae Parker. Those are the cheap guys that you like. There's a decent amount of votes for other, though, which I can definitely get behind. So let's move back over to the data table. Again, if you're here for the first time, linemovement.com, resources tab, NFL data table. Free resource. Used to be not free. It was from all my Twitch subscribers. But now it is giving us kind of some stuff that I think really matter, obviously, at each position. Weighted opportunity rating. Basically a target market share and market share of air yards hybrid. We're going to have to fix something. I'm not sure why this is all the way over to the right. Anyways, you guys get the idea. We'll still go through this. The weighted opportunity part still works. So the top guys in weighted opportunity this week, Devonta Adams, Terry McLaurin, Stephon Diggs, Robbie Anderson, and DK Metcalf. One guy that no one has brought up today in the chat, that I've seen at least, what do we think about Robbie Anderson? 6,100. I think I liked him a little bit more when we didn't have some win concerns in this game. But man, that seems like a great price tag for him. I'm always intrigued by these Carolina guys for some reason. At the top, though, guys, we talked about it. Devonta Adams is 9K in a really tough game environment for wind. So I think that unless you're, I don't think he'll be near 23% owned anymore. I really don't. Definitely not at the high stakes. But I also don't think he's going to be like sub 10 or anything like that. So he's kind of a weird tweener for me right now at 9K. I'm not really on it. I would prefer to move down to some of these better game environments. Stephon Diggs, DK Metcalf, DeAndre Hopkins. Michael Thomas, a pace down game, but not really any weather concerns there. So I think that Michael Thomas is a fantastic play off of last week's kind of dud. I think he had 5 catches for like 50 yards. I love Michael Thomas today, guys. Let's be early on Michael Thomas. If you were to tell me last year that Michael Thomas would be 7,400 on a slate, I don't care who it's against. Nice team total. I think he's a fantastic play. 11%, he will be 20 at least at the high stakes this week. It's just too cheap. Someone says it is just too cheap. Doozy, which game we talking about here? What's not that windy yet? A half leaf rating. We need the boots on the ground take from Doozy. Very interesting. Josh B, thanks for subscribing to the channel, man. Appreciate that. Seriously. Thanks for being with us. DP likes Chris Conley. Interesting. BSP is the VIP. You're right there, Aaron. No Alshon Jeffrey for cheap. I think that the target share in Philly is scaring me a little bit. It's so spread out. I don't know if Alshon's just going to come in and directly like take over the Ray Gore or the Fulgham role. They've been too good. Pittsburgh. Okay, interesting, Doozy. So maybe that's the leverage spot. Maybe the Joe Burrow stacks are in play. Very interesting. Nick Bird, I think Chris Godwin could be a great play. Tom Brady mad. The fact that we have to put context that Tom Brady is mad is so funny to me. Lower ADOT with wind. Yeah, I'm with you. Nick, I like Godwin quite a bit as well. I also like Antonio Brown a lot today. Luke, not sure if you noticed this, but nobody's talking about Tyler Lockett in the chat. Love him at 6,500, price for GPPs. GPP play for sure. I would argue that his price is maybe right, maybe slightly overpriced relative to his volume. You guys know I'm always just looking at the volume, right? So I prefer getting up to the DK Metcalf alpha. But yeah, if you want to put any weight into the Ramsey shadow or whatever it is, I know he came out and said he wasn't going to completely shadow Metcalf. Yeah, Tyler Lockett in a great game environment, 6,500, cheaper way to back into it. I don't mind that. Let's talk about those guys for a second. There's a lot of good plays in that game at wide receiver, obviously. So Tyler Lockett, he only has, like, just to tie a bow on that, only a 24% target share, right? So that would be my biggest concern, would be the volume there. But Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, again, we're sorting by weighted opportunity here. Cooper Kupp, 6,900, Robert Woods, 6,600. They're not cheap. They're not free, but easy bringbacks with Russell Wilson stacks, easy mini correlation spots if you don't want to play either of the quarterbacks in this game. Bring it back with Kupp, bring it back with Robert Woods. Originally, and I mentioned this earlier, I thought this is kind of what the ownership would be. Woods at about 11, Cooper Kupp at 17 right now. If this ends up being closer, like both end up being like 15, I think in a vacuum, I prefer Cooper Kupp. Am I crazy? That's at least kind of where I'm at right now. So I think that's interesting. Terry McLaurin, I mean, say what you want, guys. Like, I know Alex Smith, all that stuff, push the ball downfield. Terry McLaurin, 6,800. His price has finally moved up. Those are the bad. The good is that his volume is still crazy. And we're in a dome in Detroit. We have all these win games that we're talking about. Are we just going to ignore Terry McLaurin? Terry McLaurin, bring it back with Hawkinson, who no one's going to play off of injury? That's what we're talking about. Sub 10%. That's how you get ahead in tournaments, is you don't just blindly play these games that have a terrible game environment and win. We figure out different ways to do mini correlations in games that are lower owned, but still volume. I think Terry McLaurin is really interesting in tournaments today, guys. I do. So outside of those guys at wide receiver, let's just talk about a couple of the guys that are severely underpriced. So one of the first guys that stands out to me, Devonta Parker. 5K. So Isaiah Ford gets traded. Preston Williams is injured. So the target tree is a lot more narrow right now. I know there's some people that were on Tua. I kind of like the Parker bringbacks in that game. And like stacking up the Charger side of things, where it's a little bit less condensed. So Parker is like 5K. The price just doesn't make a lot of sense. We did a poll with it earlier. Devonta Parker was our guy that was 5K or lower that we liked the best as a community. So I think that the chance that like Justin Herbert, we know he's the real deal. Maybe this game turns into kind of like a sneaky shootout. If Parker like ends up around like that, like 7-8 target range, that's a great price tag at 5K. Am I crazy? Some people want to play Jakeem Grant at 3K. Yeah, I think Jakeem Grant is fine on DraftKings as a punt play. I don't think there's a lot of ceiling there, though. But yeah, condensed target share, decent game environment, pace up game. Yeah, Jakeem Grant's fine, guys. The other side of that game, we haven't talked about Keenan Allen yet, which is definitely a mistake. He's one of the best wide receiver plays on the slate. It's not close. So this matchup against the Dolphins, not that great, obviously. The Dolphins defense, I do have some respect for them. Only Devonta Adams, higher target share projection than Keenan, for me at least. He's had at least 11 targets in 6 full games with Justin Herbert this year. So the floor is definitely safe. So like Keenan versus Diggs. Keenan, definitely higher floor. I would argue that Stephon Diggs has a higher ceiling. Stephon Diggs is the game I want to be in, this Buffalo and Arizona game. But don't sleep on this Keenan Allen stuff. So like Keenan Allen and Parker, these mini stacks. You guys are going to hear me say mini stacks a lot because after your main stack, you should try and figure out different ways to back into these other good game environments. You know what I mean? So I like that quite a bit. I like Keenan Allen a lot. We talked about McLaurin. Who else we on at wide receiver? You guys don't need me to tell you that Stephon Diggs is a great play, right? All over Stephon Diggs. That's probably all we need to talk about with him. Jerry Judy, 5,600. Someone that is a little bit banged up. I'm interested in this Denver stack overall. It's like a low-owned stack. We talked about that on the stacks video earlier this week. I think it's really interesting. Who else? Josh Reynolds is a cheap option. I think he's probably the top, like, pay all the way down option. Mentioned Robbie Anderson. I wish this game environment was a little bit better with Wynn, but I think it's interesting. Smokey Brown and Kirk today. Yeah, cheaper options in a great game environment, man. I'm with you. I'm intrigued by the Gabriel call from Doozy earlier, though. I think that's interesting. Iceman says he doesn't think there's a more consistent wide receiver right now than Allen. Hard to argue with that, man. I don't think you're wrong. Peterson on Brown. Maybe. I don't really care about that stuff, Aaron. Ayuk is my dude today. Gavin is going to die on this Ayuk train. I like it, man. Flash needs permission to play Stephon Diggs. Flash, I'm going to give you permission to play Stephon Diggs. He's a great play, man. A few T. Higgins bringbacks. Interesting. Some Ayuk people in the chat. Interesting. Yeah, Gabriel Davis is very cheap, Scott. So definitely much lower owned than someone like Josh Reynolds. Not as safe. That's for sure. We'll get to tight end very soon on top. Wide receiver is an interesting one this week overall, I think. What else we got here? I think we touched on most of the plays, guys. I think these Carolina guys are interesting. DJ Moore, 5,100, definitely the lowest owned guy in this group, especially if it ends up being a little bit of a lower ADOT situation. Maybe it's a DJ Moore game, not a Robbie Anderson game. I could see that being a thing. Darius Slayton at no ownership. Not a great spot against Philly, obviously. But I'm intrigued by Darius Slayton at no ownership. I think that's interesting. Jarvis Landry, we haven't talked about him yet. 5,900 with no OBJ. His target share is extremely strong. This game environment is horrendous. But if you do think there's going to be some shorter passing, yeah, Jarvis Landry at 5,900. I'm with you on that. He's in that Ayuk range. So we know where Gavin's going. People want to talk tight end. Okay. Anything else at wide receiver? Flash, Chase Claypool. Thank you for saying that. I think Claypool is a phenomenal tournament play today. I like that one a lot. Let's talk through some quick leverage options at wide receiver, though, because if anything fails in the beginning, like we're going to have to try and figure out some guys to late swap into. So we talked about the Cincinnati guys, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd. They're going to be extremely low owned. The Pittsburgh guys overall, someone like Juju, someone like Claypool. I think those guys will also go very under owned. But I like these Denver guys. Call me crazy. I like these Denver guys. So Jerry Judy, obviously he's a little bit banged up, but since he's like someone in the chat just mentioned Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson gets moved out of the slot. He's a very talented young wide receiver, goes absolutely crazy. Jerry Judy, same thing. They move him out of the slot. They move him to the outside, kind of the Cortland Sutton type of role, and he goes absolutely nuts because he's a really talented route runner. So I like the Denver guys a lot. I like Judy. I like Fant. I like KJ Hamler, 3,800. But I like them more as like a late swap. So if things go wrong in the morning, I think those are interesting ones. Some interesting kind of leverage spots at running back, if you do have any running back slots left. Jerick McKinnon at 5,600, I think is interesting. We talked a little bit about him. James Conner in that Pittsburgh game. Josh Jacobs. These guys that are just going to go underappreciated today, I think are really interesting. Alvin Kamara. Like I say what you want. You still need ceiling. If Alvin Kamara is 13, 15% owned, really interesting leverage spot. Should we talk some tight end? We're making our way through. We've almost done we've done the majority of the polls so far. We got 3 left. So here's the next one. Top tight end, price considered. This is a sub-only vote, so if you just come in recently, definitely hit the subscribe button so that your vote is registered here. Top tight end, price considered. Dallas Goddard, if you want to vote for him, ! Vote space 1, enter. That's all you got to do. Vincent, thank you for your super chat, my man. Vincent, big part of our community, man. Thanks for being here on a Sunday again with us. 600 player 3 max. How are you treating Arizona Buffalo stacks? Still on them. I'm all over Kyler still. I'm going to have some Kyler stacks, and I'm going to try and get different elsewhere at times. I think you can get weird enough with the rest of your team that you don't just have to blindly avoid some of the best game environments on the slate. You know what I mean? Someone in the chat was asking about Hollister. You haven't checked out any of Peter Overzet's content this week, I suppose. He's all over Hollister. Most targets per route run on the slate, at the tight end position for I can't even talk, for Seattle. So at the tight end position, I would prefer to correlate it in a perfect world since it's such a gross position overall. So targets per route run is one of the most predictive stats overall at the tight end position. So Jacob Hollister at 2,600. Only Darren Waller better target per route run over the last 4 games. So interesting punt play. It's a gross position overall, guys. Hawkinson at super low ownership coming off an injury is interesting to me. Darren Waller, going to be the chalk, but it's really hard to get there. If anyone's built lineups, 5,900 for him. We're kind of spread out right now at votes. You got about a minute left to get your vote in if you are a subscriber to the channel. A lot of others in the chat right now. We are very spread out at tight end. Interesting. Let's see what else we got here as the others. We got some Hooper love in the chat. Aikens love in the chat. Sully, just so you know, ! No space before vote. Only a space before the number. And then I believe Aikens will have to go on the next line for the bot to register it. A lot of Ingram people. Interesting. I like Ingram quite a bit too. Did I not put him on the list? So it's like Ingram feels like the Goddard pivot overall to me. So I like that one. I like Noah Fant as well. These are like the higher owned ones that we're looking at. And I wanted to put a couple cheap guys in here too with Everett and Hollister. So maybe I didn't do a great job with this poll. A lot of others. Interesting. I would imagine there's a good amount of people in the chat that are voting for Ingram. So that's interesting. BSB. Thank you for your $5 super chat, my man. You are the best. Yes, we want the BSB hot take for today. Please at me so that people can see it better. At me like 3 times. I want to see it. Appreciate you, my man. Why is John Brown not on the slate? What? I like the Gesicki call, Edwin. That's interesting. Edwin did it right. Edwin voted and then put his player in the chat. A lot of Fant people too. Okay. So maybe I didn't do as good of a job with this poll. Very interesting though. 61 votes. We got to get our votes up a little bit here, guys. We got a couple left of these. Don't let me lose you here. We still got some time. We'll get to defense after tight end, Tyrell. All right, let's move over to the data sheet. So at the tight end position, guys, we mentioned it. I think Jacob Hollister still is a very solid play at the cheap end. I like Gerald Everett a lot for like a very similar reason. Let's figure out ways to get into this Seattle and LA Rams game. And I think correlating the tight end with Hollister or Everett is something that makes a ton of sense. Say what you want, guys. Tom Brady wants to throw to Rob Gronkowski. I know he had kind of a down game last week. He's not going to be owned. So I think that Gronk, if you're thinking of running out game stacks with Carolina and Tampa Bay, is at least interesting. I like Fournette a lot. I also like Antonio Brown a lot. Someone mentioned Godwin in the chat. He does have a finger injury, which kind of scares me a little bit. Seems not great for a wide receiver to have a finger injury. But that's something. Jordan Reed at 3,500. I like this one quite a bit also. Like we talked about the McKinnon bring back, but also like Jordan Reed with Michael Thomas, Jordan Reed with Kamara, little mini stack there. Take care of tight end in a mini stack. I like that a lot. Someone said Logan Thomas in the dome. I don't mind that. Alex Smith is also not afraid to throw to his tight end, so that much we know. I don't mind that one. In the dome. So the thing that we want at tight end, guys, is we want high team totals because we know it's so touchdown driven because there's going to be less volume overall. So I think that's kind of why I'm leaning towards paying down with Everett or Hollister on some teams because we know there's going to be points in that game overall. There's not really a lot of tight end options in Arizona and Buffalo. So I think those would be the pay down options for me. What do you guys think about Dallas Goddard? He's going to be like the chalk, basically. Andy Miller, thanks for your new subscription, man. Let us know in the chat where you found us, too. Welcome in. So Hollister or Reed, I mean, probably the tiebreaker there is just play the tight end with Russell Wilson, not the tight end with Alex Smith, but I think both are good plays, Bruno. BSB. Oh, wait, I missed your big take. Oh, okay, there it is. Mine. Don't overlook the 504 team. What's the 504 team? Is that a? Are you gonna make me Google area code 504? For BSB, I will do this. New Orleans. You had to make me type that out in Google, the Google machine. BSB, thank you for your super chat, my man. Very generous of you. My biggest contrarian hot take of the slate. That's an interesting one. I think my contrarian take of the slate, I want to make sure I actually take ownership into consideration here. I think that if Alvin Kamara goes under owned today, that's a big, big mistake. Sometimes these like Alvin Kamara 3 touchdown games come out of absolutely nowhere. And if everyone just wants to like jam the narrative of let's play Aaron Jones in this weather game, I don't know if that's hot takey enough for you, BSB. But I love Kamara today, especially with some of the ownership stuff coming in overall. Angry Tom Brady, I guess maybe that's another take in this one that I really like. I think this Miami and Chargers game is interesting as kind of like a sneaky shootout. And it's definitely not a contrarian take, but some of these games with like heavy win concerns, I'm just like going to avoid them. I don't think there's enough upside there by targeting them for lower ownership. Carlos, what do we consider when doing triple stacks? Thank you for your $2 super chat, my man. When we consider doing triple stacks, so here's the thing. If your quarterback has rushing ability, I don't think it's as necessary to have to force in a triple stack. If it's someone like Jared Goff, Drew Brees, Tom Brady, I think it's very necessary to play a triple stack in those situations because they need to throw those 4 or 5 touchdowns to get there. Skinny stacks, what we'll talk about on the Tiltspace a decent amount. Normally a rushing quarterback, someone like Josh Allen, you can get away with single stacking those guys because they can do enough on their own. I hope that makes sense. Flash says, I got enough chalk playing Goddard's probably not ideal. Yeah, Goddard is going to be heavily owned. Again, my worry is that it's going to be a little bit more spread out there than people realize. Not that you can't play Goddard. I don't think that at all. Goddard's a great play. I will have some Goddard, but I don't know if he is a great ownership play unless the rest of your team is very contrarian. Thoughts on Tyler Eifert? Not really on Tyler Eifert, Gary, but I appreciate your super chat. Let me check out his price, though. We'll look into this one a little bit deeper. That's not one that I've been in on. 2,700. So basically, it pivot off of someone like Hollister. He did have 5 targets last week. That's interesting. His target per route run, top 20. So I think I still prefer Hollister and Everett because I think those guys are going to be low and owned enough anyway. I don't mind the thought process, though, Gary. Yeah, I'm off Green Bay. I would say that for the most part, Aaron. I don't think that Aaron Jones is a bad play by any means. I just have a really tough time swallowing the 9K price tag for Adams in particular. Maybe that's bad. Peter Overzet in the YouTube algorithm, such a dangerous combo. You brought me here. So good, Andy. Thanks for clicking the video, my man. Thanks for being back with us. Brees, Cook, Thomas. I like the Brees stack a bit, Tim. I'm with you on that one. So we got about 15 more minutes, and I always want to save enough time to talk through some more questions with you guys overall. So let's finish off some of these polls. Let's go through DST quickly, though. Top DST on the slate we're taking in consideration. Price, this is a sub-only vote, so if you haven't voted in any of the other chats, you do have to be a subscriber of the channel for it to completely register. But let's see where we're at on defense, guys. We'll talk through it quickly. I think defense is pretty cut and dry for me overall this week. I think there's a lot of options. There's a couple ones that feel like traps. These are my favorite ones, for the record. If anyone's wondering, I think there's 6 here on this poll. These are my favorite defenses of the week right now. So if you do want to place your vote in the chat, ! Vote, space, and then the number. In terms of pricing, guys, I probably should put that on some of these polls going forward, but I'll just do it quick and dirty here. Pittsburgh defense, 4,400 on DraftKings. Green Bay, 3,700 on DraftKings. New Orleans, 3K on DraftKings. Chargers, 2,800. Las Vegas Raiders, 2,500. LA Rams, 2,200. Where are we at in the chat right now? Wow, do we just have a $20 super chat? Are you kidding me, man? John, thank you so much, man. Appreciate everything you do and your time. Best of luck today. See everyone in the Tiltspace. John, you're the man, bro. Thank you so much. That was very generous of you. Honestly, guys, just being here, more than enough. Thank you so much. I'll see you in the Tiltspace, my man. It's always a fun show. We'll see you in the chat. Be on my side today, John. That's all I ask. I know that Leone and Overzet are going to make me play some of these thin running backs today. I need more people on the Joe side for the Tiltspace. All right, where are we at with the defense stuff? A lot of LA Rams people. So people are paying down for the LA Rams. Russell Wilson will take sacks. We know that. The game environment is solid. We don't care about points. We care about sacks. We care about turnovers. So I think the Rams bringing pressure against Seattle makes some sense. And they're 2,200. I think DraftKings gets a little bit too aggressive with the pricing sometimes in these spots where there's going to be offense in these games. Liam Murphy, thanks for subscribing to the channel, my man. Appreciate you. Welcome in. You have access to the polls. Detroit Lions, question mark? I don't like the Lions as much because they don't pressure. But against Alex Smith, maybe? I don't know. I'm not really on Detroit at 2,600. Is that one that people are on? At 2,600, I'm probably playing Vegas or definitely just trying to get to the Chargers D. I love the Chargers D at 2,800. Vote 7, the football team. Interesting, Paul. I like Washington a bit. They pressure. We know that. Mikey boy, the Browns is sharp. I like the Browns too. Cleveland with the weather now. Yeah, I think that the Browns are interesting. The Browns are one that I've messed around with a little bit on FanDuel. We know that Deshaun Watson will take sacks. So I think most people are going to play New Orleans in that range. But yeah, I think Cleveland is fine. Let me keep this poll up. We need to adjust the times on these. 48 votes. Guys, we got almost 700 people in here still. Well, let's get this up to like 60 votes, something like that. And then we'll get to stacks, and then we'll just keep doing. Someone just asked about stacks in the chat. We'll get to stacks, and then we'll do some questions to wrap things up. All right, New Orleans and LA Rams looks like the consensus here. No one has salary to play Pittsburgh, hey? The top rushing offense in the league, or defense in the league. versus one of the worst offensive lines in the league. No one wants to play him. You guys believe that much in Joe Burrow? One of the things that's interesting about Joe Burrow, guys, Pittsburgh leads the league in pressure rate on defense. Joe Burrow has taken a sack on 22% of his pressure dropbacks. That's a stat from Sports Info Solutions. Love those guys. One of the things that's like most quarterbacks, their efficiency goes down while under pressure. Joe Burrow, no different. 7.6 yards per attempt while not under pressure, 5.0 yards per attempt while under pressure. And obviously his on-target rate percentage goes down as well. So yeah, paying up to be contrarian for Pittsburgh, much easier to do on FanDuel than it is on DraftKings. I understand that. But interesting for sure. I'll throw a Packers D as well. Jake Luton. I think it's a little bit of a different spot overall. If Jake Luton just doesn't care about the win and still tries to like throw it up, someone that likes to throw deep a lot, I could see the Packers coming away with some cheap interceptions in this one for sure. A lot of people playing Saints. Nick Mullins, I understand that. Is Nick Mullins like that much of a downgrade over Jimmy Garoppolo anyway? The Saints have a pass rush, so I like that. Washington, I think Washington is like a little bit too expensive for me on DraftKings, but on FanDuel, their price is really nice. BSB, Joe Burrow sprays. Even if Pittsburgh gets a few sacks or interceptions, Burrow will spray the ball, and I still expect Cincy to put up a nice score. Man, that game is so low owned right now. Who's your bring back with Joe Burrow, BSB? I like Claypool. Let's do this since we're running out of time. The time goes by so fast on these streams. Let's complete that one. BSB, I do want to hear your bring back on that one, though. I think it's interesting. So top GPP game stack. So obviously we're taking into consideration ownership, but also all these terrible game environments that we have today. So this is a sub-only vote, obviously. Buffalo at Arizona. In order to place your vote in the chat, exclamation point, vote, space, 1. Let's hear where we're at. Joe Holka, I believe Hernandez was on Denver from the line movement video earlier this week. Yeah, TJ's the man. Very sharp DFS player. I've known him for a long time. He does like Denver a bit. Yeah, Nick, there's definitely win concerns in that game overall. And that would be a big-time concern. The nice thing is that's an afternoon game, and that's probably a late swap stack for me overall. Let's see where we're at with this stack vote. If anyone hasn't checked out the stacks video, by the way, it's one of those videos that goes up on the channel throughout the week. Definitely check that out next week if you didn't this week. Gary Hobbs, thank you for your $4.99 super chat, my man. Wow, very generous of you. I'm in a 4-man cash game. Should I start Aaron Jones and Mike Davis or Duke Johnson and Miles Sanders? I prefer the Aaron Jones and Mike Davis side of that, my friend. I don't think you have to get too crazy in a 4-man cash game. Make them play the right plays. You know what I mean? Couple new subscribers, guys. Thank you so much. Yeah, we did move these polls. They started to work finally. We did move them to sub only. So if you're wondering why your vote hasn't been registered, it's probably because you haven't hit that sub button yet. Let's talk about the Patreon one last time, guys, as we're waiting for the rest of these votes to come in here. So the Patreon is something that we made available a couple weeks ago. That's been a great time. It is $1 per month, 25 cents per week. Try to keep it as cheap as possible. All the profits for this overall is going to go directly into the prize pool for DraftKings, our DraftKings tournament that we have in our community. So last week we gave away a $30 Amazon gift card. This week we're going to do the same thing to the winner of that. But you get access to our Discord community, right? So all the conversation that's happening in the chat right now on the live streams, it's where that continues after this. News comes in, all that stuff. You want to talk to some like-minded, smart people, ask questions. This is the place to do it. Obviously, we do have our NFL Red Zone stream room in there as well. If you want to come watch the games with us and chat throughout, that's available. Also, a 15 to 30-minute live stream directly before kickoff. That's basically when all my lineups are done. So I jump back on. That is not on YouTube. That is only in the Discord for the Patreon. So definitely check that out. If you haven't already, guys, would love to continue to grow this thing. Over 214 Patreons as of now. Let's see what it is sitting at after the stream. So we have gotten about 4 Patreons already during the stream today. So appreciate if you're new to the Patreon. 2 minutes left on the poll right now. Looks like our top game stack is currently Buffalo at Arizona, Seattle and LA Rams right behind. This is about what I thought it would be. More people on Tampa Bay, Carolina than I thought, though. Interesting. Let me check out some of the votes in the chat for other. Armando says, love the Patreon. We're happy to have you, Armando. Do I submit a lineup in the Patreon contest? Of course, man. Of course. We have someone, I believe it's Midway, that's actually accumulating some, like, basically he came up with like standings based on like how many people were in each tournament, all this stuff. You get more points for the ones that were larger and stuff. It's pretty cool. I believe I'm doing well so far in it. But yeah, we review the winning lineup on the Monday stream as well. I probably haven't mentioned this once today, which is a big mistake. But if you're here for the first time, we do stream every Monday and Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern time. Obviously, Sunday morning, we get started at 9 a.m. Eastern time. But join us throughout the week. Bunch of awesome guests: Rich Rebar, Sigmund Bloom, Jake Seeley, Matt Harmon. We do get Mike Tagliere and TJ Hernandez involved as well. Going through the week. Definitely earlier in the week is nice to kind of get the pulse on everything. So join us for one of those streams too. New Orleans SF for Jay Smooth. Interesting, man. Houston, Cleveland. Man, I guess have some big time win concerns in that game. Where can I get one of those hats? Yeah, we're going to have to make the Blitz Bet hats available soon. For right now, it's only staff, unfortunately. Let's see what else we got here. More Pittsburgh Cincy people. Interesting. So you're not worried about the weather on DP? You're with BSB, so you're in good company. Goddard or Henry? I prefer Goddard, Adrian. Juju, Claypool, or is probably better floor. Claypool, higher ceiling. Yeah, I agree with that, Big Show. That's your bring back on that one. Juju's going to be super low owned also. I just kind of like Claypool because I'm a sucker for like that. Those like kind of like trick plays they do at the goal line where they get him involved in the run game. I like that. Tyrell, is Nick Chubb playable? I think so. So here's where we're at on the top game stacks right now, guys. I'll leave this up and we'll get to some questions here. Probably take some questions next 5-10 minutes. And then obviously the line movement show is directly after this. So we'll go through game by game with Peter Overzet and also Dieter Kurtenbach. If you haven't checked out any of the line movement shows, definitely would do that. A ton of content going up throughout the week for that. If you're an MMA fan, a hockey fan, we have some awesome interviews as well. The Holkamaniacs shirts, that'd be cool. Everett or Higbee? I like Everett, RJM. Better targets per route run right now. A little bit cheaper. Need your insight on Amendola. I think Amendola's fine. Overzet brought him up earlier in the week. I think he's okay. I don't think it's like the best play by any means, but I think he's in play. We talked about late swap a little bit. I think we have a pretty good feel for what we're doing if things go wrong in the morning. I guess I'm most concerned now that this Tampa Bay and Carolina game, there's some concerns there because originally there wasn't supposed to be weather concerns there. It's not necessarily like Houston, Cleveland, or Jacksonville, Green Bay. Maybe it doesn't matter as much for Tom Brady, though. Do you think Gibson is too thin for small field GPPs? No. We're still trying to get different in small field. I think Gibson's okay. Just know going into it that there's a lot of volatility to that projection, right? He's had games where he's touched the ball 20 times. His games where he's touched the ball like 9 times. Chubb or Sanders for cash? I don't think either of those guys are really cash game options, if I'm being honest. If I had to choose one, probably Sanders. Duke Johnson or Swift? I think are you playing cash games, tournaments, anything like that? Like I think Swift's an awesome tournament play. Duke Johnson's definitely going to have safer volume today, though, if you're playing cash games. Tua or Goff? That's a tough one, Ragu. I rarely play Goff. I'm going to say Tua. I prefer like mini stacks with the Rams, I think. Tua's given us a little bit on the ground, easily stackable with Parker, one of the better. Like I think you can literally, we talk about guys that you can do small stacks with. Tua to Parker. Bring it back with Keenan Allen. I think that one makes a ton of sense. Bernard, Gibson, or Duke? Again, if you have those kind of questions, guys, let me know if it's season long. Let me know if it's tournaments, that kind of stuff. Like the best way to ask the question is kind of like what Weezy did. Chubb or Sanders for cash? Because it all depends, right? Armando, I have Metcalf and Hollister in my lineup. Is it okay to play the Rams D or should I go with Vegas D? I would not play a defense against 2 pass catchers, personally. Definitely a direct negative correlation there. Judy or Antonio Brown? That's a tough one, Trevor. There's a lot more volatility to Antonio Brown, I think. But there's a chance that Tom Brady's trying to get him involved, right? The air yards were there last week, all that stuff. Jerry Judy does have the injury concern. I think in a vacuum, I still prefer Judy. That's a hard one, though, man. Mr. Talk on running back. Are you on Balaj? I struggle with that one a little bit. I think he's okay. Let me see where we're projecting him right now in terms of touches. With Brady out. Balaj. Yeah, I don't think I'm on Balaj, man. I can't do it. I think there's too many good plays at running back this week. BSB, one more super chat. What a guy. Good luck, man. I'll see you in the Discord, all right? What a guy, BSB. Parker Gesicki stack today. I like it, Jeremy. I like the Gesicki call a lot. He's in a price range where he's going to be super low owned, I think, relative to the tight ends around him, right? So he is at 4,300. I think most people are going to play Evan Ingram at 45 or go down to Dallas Goddard at 42. Steinberg, if Tongan is out, maybe Brandon. I don't know. I'm like avoiding that game a bit. Balaj hates the Dolphins. Yeah, revenge spot, maybe. Got to run, Joe. Thanks again for all you do for the DFS community. Dino, thanks for being here, man. Seriously. Good stuff. Tournament, best contrarian stack. I think the Denver stack is interesting contrarian stack today. Burrow, if you're not scared of wind. Are you fading the Packer and Jack's game, or are you scaling it back? Definitely scaling it back, Aaron. I would be shocked if I end up with any Devonta Adams. I'll have a little bit of Aaron Jones across my lineups, but I'm playing a little bit more action today. It just worked out that way on the 1 p.m. only and the 4 p.m. only slate on FanDuel. Most of my action on DraftKings is going to be on one main team, and then the teams we do for the Tiltspace and some of the higher stake stuff. Is Mike Evans present an interesting one-off as a squeaky wheel? Yeah, I'm a little bit more nervous now about the weather with Mike Evans, though. I was super interested in him. I think that Mike Evans, it's possible he still out targets Antonio Brown. I don't know, man. I'm nervous about it now, though. I liked it a lot yesterday. I had some Evans teams. I think if you're fully stocking out Brady, it makes some sense. Pope probably going to clear protocol. Pope, Balaj, Kelly. Yeah, it's just like it's a revolving door there, man. That's why it's so hard to project those guys. I think that's sharp flash. Of course, Bruno. No worries, my man. Thanks for asking your question. Is this the game where DeAndre Swift can ball out? Maybe, Scott. Man, Leone and Overzet try and get me to play Swift every week. But, I mean, in the dome, you can bring it back with some nice plays on the other side. Maybe a Terry McLaurin, DeAndre Swift mini stack. I don't mind that. I don't really have interest in either of the quarterbacks, but mini stack category for me in consideration. Weather won't bother the pack. Sam, I disagree with you pretty adamantly. Who to stack with Kylo Murray? Smokey Brown. So you're saying like do like a naked Kylo Murray, bring it back with Smokey? Yeah, that's fine. Browns would be the most hardcore contrarian. Maybe. Landry, Chubb, something like that. Weather concerns there too. Best cheap wide receivers. I do like the idea of Josh Reynolds, just getting access to that game. He is in the buy low model, all that good stuff. If you have the salary, I'm trying to get to Parker. Online movement, how do you get that screen? That screen I was on? Okay, let's do it. I'll show you. Linemovement.com, resources tab right up here. NFL data table. That's how you get to it. Super easy. Favorite cash game to target? Like cash game play? Just play Mike Davis, the Stoneman. Match the field. I don't play a lot of cash games for the record. I play like 99% tournaments. How about James Robinson? Yeah, we talked about James Robinson a little bit. I was slightly concerned about his pass game involvement with Thompson there now, but decent leverage option. He's still going to see a ton of volume. Don't love the game for plays as much as I did before, though. Now there's going to be so much more running in it. But 6,600 for James Robinson based on touches alone is really solid. Any Tim Patrick today? I prefer Judy. I prefer paying down to KJ Hamler. I prefer Fant. So Tim Patrick's like my fourth favorite guy, just because I think that Judy kind of took over that Sutton role that Tim Patrick was playing a little bit more of. But he's going to be the lowest owned of all those guys. So I guess it depends. Rashard Higgins is going to be such a great play. Can't do it with the win now. It's tough, man. You still on Landry, Flash? Thoughts on plugging Aguilar in a lot of lineups today? Probably not something I'm going to do. I think the clear bringbacks on the Vegas side are either Jacobs or Waller. Lockett going to go nuclear today? Man, not enough people talking about Lockett. I'm a little bit more interested in that now. I think that enough people are talking about how good Metcalf is, that Lockett is so much cheaper. There's so much volatility to his volume, and his price is not great. It's interesting, though. Do I prefer Allen or Thomas in cash games? Allen in cash games, I think Thomas is a phenomenal tournament play, Shane. Let's get into our final questions, guys. Obviously, there'll be the stream directly before kickoff for the Patreons in Discord, and then I'll be on the Line Movement Show if you have any further questions. One of the things I want to make sure you guys do is join us throughout the week. So Mondays, Wednesdays, 3 p.m. Eastern time. A lot of good fun throughout that. Always check out anything you guys throughout the week, obviously on the podcast as well. So search Joe Holka Show on Apple Podcasts. Leave me a rating and review. That's one of the best ways, honestly, to support what I'm trying to do here. So I'll see you guys on the Line Movement Show directly after this. I'll see you at the Tiltspace at 5:30. Don't miss the Tiltspace today. That's going to be great. And I think that that's going to pretty much do it for today, guys. Appreciate it. This is an amazing stream. I think our top concurrent viewers, we almost got up above 900 again today. Spread the word. Tell your friends if you enjoyed kind of the interaction today, going through some polls, all that good stuff. Tell your friends. Let's try and get over 1K again at some point on Sunday. That would be really fun. All right, guys. Good stream. I'll see you guys in the Discord very soon. And when you get to the Line Movement Show, when you get into the chat, I want you to say, "We are back," so that I know you came from over here. All right, guys. Sounds good. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Talk to you soon.